Hello again. This is Elena from Anascha Sprachschule, and this is the German Bootcamp. And today we're going to learn about telling time in German. Okay, so we've already covered all the numbers we need. So the next step for us is learning how to tell time and learning about the German system of how we tell time. So bear with me. It's a little different from what you're probably used to, but once you have a hang of it, it's actually quite easy and logical, as a lot of things in the German language. So let's get started. Before we begin, let's cover some basic vocabulary, Wortschatz vocabulary that you're going to need. So if we talk about hours, 1 hour, the hour is die Stunde. If we're talking about several hours, it's Stunden, die Stunden. 1 minute, the minute, die Minute. The minutes, die Minuten. 1 second, the second, die Sekunde. Several seconds, die Sekunden. So if you want to ask somebody, hey, what time is it? Or do you happen to know the time? You can either say, wie spät ist es? Or you can say, wie viel Uhr ist es? The meaning is exactly the same, so you can just pick whatever feels easier or better for you. In general, if we talk about the time, we say die Zeit. Es ist Zeit, ins Bett zu gehen. It's time to go to bed. Okay, so it's the general concept of time. Whereas if you talk about a clock, whether it be a wristwatch, which I don't have, then it's die Uhr. Okay, and this is if you combine the two, clock and time, you come to Uhrzeit, die Uhrzeit, which is clock time in German. So, ready? Let's get going. In general, we use the 24-hour system when we talk about time in German. So 1 p.m. would be 1300, 2 p.m., 1400, and so on. Okay. You have to know, though, there's a slight difference between the formal system and like the word on the street, because like official times are usually given in the 24-hour system. Okay, so you will not see 3 when it means 3 p.m. Let's say for a movie starting time, it will be 1500, always written out. However, if you talk to people and it's obvious which time of the day you're referring to, then you can also hear somebody say, hey, let's meet at 3 o'clock, even though they do refer to 1500. Okay, so context in this case is key, but we're gonna practice and learn about both. Okay, let's cover a little more vocabulary before we get into the actual time telling here, okay? So whenever we refer to noon, that's Mittag in German. Okay, so 12 noon would be 12 Uhr mittags. You know 12 already, you know Uhr. Mittags is middays. So midnight would be Mitternacht, or you can say 0 Uhr. In the morning, morgens. In the afternoon. Noticing a little typo here, of course, this is a double O instead of a double N. Oops. Anyway, in the afternoon, nachmittags. In the evening, abends. In the night, nachts. The morning, der Morgen. The afternoon, der Nachmittag. The evening, der Abend. The night, die Nacht. Anyway, okay, let's dive in. Wie spät ist es? What time is it? Es ist 3 Uhr. It's 3 o'clock. That's pretty easy, right? So you just take whatever hour, whatever time it is, and you add Uhr to it. Es ist 3 Uhr. It is 3 o'clock. Okay. So let's look at a few examples here, okay? I'll give you a moment to look at them and to figure it out on your own before I tell you the correct answers, but I'm sure you can do it, as you know all the numbers. Okay, if you haven't figured it out yet, you can pause the video if you want to figure it out on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. Pointing to the 12. S is, we don't know what time of the day it is, okay? So it could be midnight, it could be 12 noon, we don't know. So let's assume it's broad daylight. Es ist Mittag. Or if it's dark outside, es ist Mitternacht. Or you can just say, es ist 12 Uhr. So let's look at this again here. In the first example, es ist 9 Uhr means it's bright outside, it's in the morning, es ist 9 Uhr. When it's dark outside or you see it written out as 2100, es ist 21 Uhr. Or you can, instead of 21 Uhr, you can also use a little trick and you can say, es ist 9 Uhr abends. That way you're using single digits, but you're adding like the word abends in the evening, so that's all right as well. Same goes for the next one. Es ist 6 Uhr in the morning, oder es ist 18 Uhr, 1800, or you can say es ist 6 Uhr abends. So this one I already covered a little bit. Es ist 12 Uhr, you can say regardless of the time of the day if the context is clear, or you can specify. Also, if it's midnight, you can also say es ist 0 Uhr oder es ist 24 Uhr. Although 24 Uhr is not really used, but 0 Uhr you can say, no problem. Or like I said, you can say es ist Mittag, es ist Mitternacht. So we got the full hours covered. Let's move on. Okay, this is where it gets a little more tricky, okay, because the system here is different from what you're used to in English. So if we talk about quarters, that's still not so hard. A quarter in German is ein Viertel. So if you want to say quarter past, as here, as it's indicated here, you can say Viertel nach. Okay, let's jump to the right here. Same goes for quarter till, Viertel vor. Nach means after, vor means before. So Viertel nach, quarter after, Viertel vor, quarter till. Now, let's look at the middle here. Half in German means halb. So far, so good, not too complicated. However, our point of reference in German time telling is different from the English version. So, let's look at the next slide here. Especially look at the middle. If we use the half way to tell time using half, our point of reference is always the next full hour. Okay, so as in my example here, if I want to say it's 3:30 in German, we say es ist 3:30. It's 3:30. Like half of the next hour is full. Okay, 3:30, es ist 3:30. Of course, you can also say es ist 3:30. Same meaning, but more colloquial would be to use the half version. So it's important to know, I indicated this down here, when you're using half, Viertel, whether it's nach or vor, in spoken German, we only use single digit numbers, okay, regardless of the time of the day. So even if it's 15:30, so PM, 3:30 p.m., we would still say es ist 3:30. Mainly because it's obvious what time of the day it is, and this only applies to spoken German. So we have this example here: 3:15, quarter past 3. Es ist Viertel nach 3. And the same goes for 15:15, quarter past 3 in the afternoon. Also, es ist Viertel nach 3. But of course, you can also say, es ist 3:15 Uhr. Oder es ist 15:15 Uhr, if you want to be very specific. In our example here, Also, of course, just like in English, quarter till refers to the next full hour. So 3:45 would be es ist Viertel vor vier. 15:45, es ist Viertel vor vier. And again, you can also use just the numbers and say, es ist 3:45 Uhr, es ist 15:45 Uhr. Okay, so another way is just using the hour and the minutes separately. Es ist, state the hour and the number of minutes. So let's say 6:21. Es ist 6:21 Uhr. Let's move on. So I have a few examples here of what we just learned. So let's look at this again. I'll give you a moment for you to figure it out. Again, if you haven't figured it out on your own yet, but you want to, just pause this video and continue whenever you're ready. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Let's look at this written out again. Es ist Viertel nach fünf. Es ist 10:30. Es ist Viertel vor zwei. So if you want to use just the digits, of course, you can also say es ist 5:15 Uhr if it's in the morning. Or you can say es ist 17:15 Uhr if it's in the afternoon. Same here. You can say es ist 10:30 Uhr if it's in the morning, or es ist 22:30 Uhr if it's at night. And here, I know you got it by now, but like let's complete this. Es ist äh, es ist 13:45 Uhr. Oh, I got ahead of myself. Es ist 1:45 Uhr if it's in the morning or at night. But es ist 13:45 Uhr if it's in the afternoon. Okay, let's look at a few more examples. Now we're getting a little more tricky. Um, so I'll give you a moment again to figure it out, and I'll be right back. Okay, again, please feel free to pause the video if you haven't figured it out yet. Otherwise, let's move on. I'll change the slide for that. So here we have several options. Isn't that great to have several options? So you can say es ist 7:50 Uhr if it's in the morning, or you can say es ist 19:50 Uhr if it's in the evening, or you can just say es ist 7:50 Uhr. Again, just like with, remember what I said earlier with the half and the quarter, if you use the expression of vor oder nach, before or after, we always only use single digits as a reference. So even if it's 1950, okay, at night, we would still say es ist 10:08. But again, this is only spoken German. Next one. If it's in the morning, es ist 4:10 Uhr. If it's in the afternoon, es ist 16:10 Uhr. And if you want to use the other way of telling time, regardless of the time of the day, es ist 10:04. So let's look at the last example. Es ist 8:35 Uhr, 8:35, in the morning, if it's in the morning. Es ist 20:35 Uhr, if it's at night. And regardless of the day, here's a little tricky one. Es ist 8:55. Okay, 8:30 would be with a big hand down here. 8:30 would be 8:30. And you can say it's 5 after 8:30. We do that a lot. Es ist 8:55. So if you want to be a little like more fancy, you can use that, okay? But of course, 8:35, es ist 8:35 will be just as fine. Okay, before we close, let's look at a little more vocabulary that you need when you talk about time. Now, jetzt. Soon, bald. Later, später. Punctual, pünktlich. I'm running late. A sentence that I use a lot. Ich verspäte mich. The past, die Vergangenheit. The present, die Gegenwart. Die Zukunft, the future, die Zukunft. Okay, and here's a nice sentence to end the session with. The best time is always now. Die beste Zeit ist immer jetzt. Yeah, that's I believe that. One of my favorite sentences. If you have any questions, as usual, please feel free to send me an email, to write a comment, whatever is more convenient for you, and I will see you for the next lesson. Bis bald!